I died with my name still attached to a paper I had begged them not to publish. That was the part that hurt most. Not the suspension. Not the empty office. Not the hospital badge that stopped opening doors. Not even the headline that called me a disgraced physician scientist. My name. Natalie Brooks, MD. First author. Principal investigator. Corresponding author. 3 titles that had once made me proud became 3 reasons everyone believed the fraud belonged to me. The paper claimed our model could predict postoperative infections almost 48 hours earlier than conventional screening. If the result had been real, it would have changed surgical care. It was not real. I knew that by the time the manuscript reached the journal. I had known something was wrong before submission. The effect size was too clean. The subgroup analysis was too impressive. The missing data behaved like someone had trained them to disappear. But I had been exhausted. I had been covering clinics, attending quality meetings, supervising residents, and trying to keep a multi-center study alive after 2 coordinators quit. So when Chloe Parker smiled across the conference table and said, "I cleaned the last batch for you," I thanked her. When she said she had corrected the infection labels for patients whose charts were obviously miscoded, I told her to document the changes. When she sent me a spreadsheet at midnight and wrote, "Nothing major, just clean up," I believed her. That was my first mistake. My second was believing that because I had designed the study, I could always reconstruct what happened later. My third was signing the final author attestation after skimming a report instead of rebuilding the data pipeline myself. The manuscript went out. 2 weeks later, an anonymous complaint reached the University Research Integrity Office. Data manipulation. Undisclosed exclusion of negative outcomes. Improper relabeling of postoperative infection cases. Possible fabrication. The complaint was precise. Too precise. Investigators froze our research drives before I could even understand what had happened. Then Chloe cried in her interview. She said I pressured the team to produce a publishable result. She said I told her negative cases were noise. She said I asked her to modify classifications so the model would look clinically useful. She produced messages where I had written, "We need a clean dataset by Friday." And, "Please resolve inconsistent labels." And, "We cannot send this mess to statistics." All true. None meant what she said they meant. Context did not matter once the manipulated table carried my name. The worst document was a spreadsheet called final_clean_NB. XLSX. NB, my initials. The file had been created on my laptop in the lab. The altered patient labels were inside it. I swore I had never created that version. The metadata showed my workstation. The audit system showed a login under my credentials at 11:43 p.m. On a Thursday. I had been at home. I could not prove it. I used the same password for too long. I had once given Chloe access to my workstation while she helped recover a corrupted citation library. I did not remember whether I had changed it afterward. The committee did not need to prove I personally clicked every cell. I was principal investigator. I was responsible for the integrity of the project. The journal retracted the paper before publication. The university placed me on administrative leave. My hospital limited my research privileges. My fellowship mentor stopped returning calls. The Grant Foundation suspended our award. Chloe survived. She told everyone she had been a junior person trapped inside a toxic lab. A year later, she joined another institution. A profile called her a rising medical genius who bravely exposed misconduct. I read that sentence in a grocery store parking lot. Then I vomited beside my car. 2 years later, my medical license remained active, but my academic career was dead. 3 years later, my father developed pancreatic cancer. I could treat patients. I could understand his scan. I could explain chemotherapy. I could not give him the one thing he asked for. Did you do it? No. Then why does everyone believe you did? Because I had made myself responsible for everything. I did not say that. He died 6 months later. I stopped sleeping. I stopped writing. I stopped opening journals. At 38, I took a utilization review job for an insurance contractor. One rainy night, after denying a hospital claim I knew would be appealed anyway, I sat in my parked car and realized I could not remember the last day I had wanted tomorrow. I drove home. I drank half a bottle of wine. I fell asleep on the couch. I never woke up. The medical examiner later would probably have called it an arrhythmia. I called it exhaustion. Then my eyes opened to sunlight. My office. My old office. The one with the cracked whiteboard and the coffee stain beneath the window. A manuscript draft glowed on my monitor. Title: Early Prediction of Postoperative Infectious Complications Using Dynamic Clinical Variables. My hands went numb. The clock read 6:17 a.m. The date was March 4th. The day before submission. I stared at the document. My name appeared first. Chloe Parker second. Dr. Samuel Whitmore last. In my first life, I submitted at 4:52 p.m. The next day. At 8:10 that morning, Chloe would bring me a revised data table. At noon, she would tell me the effect estimate had improved after correcting labels. At 3, Samuel would congratulate us. At 5, I would go home thinking the hardest part was over. I stood so quickly my chair rolled into the wall. My heart hammered. I went to the bathroom and threw up. When I looked in the mirror, I saw myself at 32. No gray hair at my temples. No hollow face. No fear permanently carved around my mouth. I was alive. The paper had not been submitted. The fraud had not happened yet. Or had not finished happening. I did not know which. I returned to my office. My inbox had a message from Chloe sent at 5:58. Chloe, I think I figured out the infection label inconsistencies. Chloe, huge difference. Chloe, you're going to love me. I stared at the words. In my first life, I answered, already do. Coffee? This time, I opened the research drive. Then I stopped. If I began digging secretly, I could change the trail. I needed process. I needed an official line in time. I opened the manuscript submission portal. The paper was saved as a draft. Not submitted. There was a button, Withdraw Draft. I clicked it. The portal asked for a reason. I typed, Author requests withdrawal prior to submission for independent verification of data integrity and authorship contributions. I clicked Confirm. The draft vanished from the active queue. At 6:29, I emailed Samuel, Chloe, our biostatistician Dr. Priya Shah, the research compliance officer, and the departmental administrator. Subject: Immediate hold on manuscript and data analysis. I wrote, I have withdrawn the current manuscript draft prior to journal submission. Effective immediately, no version of the manuscript, dataset, code, figures, or derived analyses should be submitted, circulated externally, or represented as final. I am requesting an institutional data integrity review before any future submission. Please preserve all versions, access logs, code repositories, source documents, and change histories. I will not approve further data edits outside the documented project workflow. I read the email 3 times. Then I sent it. At 6:34, I opened a second email. Subject, resignation. That one was harder. I had spent 11 years building this career. Medical school. Residency. Research fellowship. Night calls. Grant rejections. Accepted abstracts. Rejected papers. Small wins. Large humiliations. I had fought for every step. Walking away felt insane. In my first life, I stayed because I thought the paper was my proof that everything had been worth it. Then the paper destroyed me. This time, I needed distance more than ownership. I addressed the resignation to Samuel, the department chair, and human resources. Effective 2 weeks from today, I am resigning from my faculty research appointment and clinical research leadership role. I will complete a formal handoff of all active projects, source data, regulatory binders, code repositories, and outstanding participant responsibilities. I will not retain control of project data after handoff. I am available during the notice period only for documented transition duties. I am requesting that access rights and ownership responsibilities be reassigned in writing as each project transfers. My hand hovered above send. My entire identity seemed to hover with it. Doctor. Researcher. Principal investigator. Future associate professor. The person my father bragged about. The person my mother introduced as our scientist. If I resign now, before the scandal, people would think I had lost my mind. Then I remembered my father asking, "Did you do it?" I clicked send. At 6:41, Chloe called. I watched her name flash. I answered. What did you do? No hello. No concern. Panic. I withdrew the manuscript draft. Why? I want an integrity review before submission. Of what? The data pipeline. Silence. Then she laughed. It sounded wrong. Natalie, we have been reviewing it for months. I want an independent review. Today? Yes. The journal deadline is tomorrow. We can miss it. Samuel is going to lose his mind. He can. Another silence. What happened? What do you mean? You were fine yesterday. I changed my mind. About the whole paper? About submitting before we verify. She exhaled sharply. Okay. Then we verify today. No. What? Compliance will coordinate. Natalie, this is our study. It is an institutional study. You know what I mean. I do. Her voice dropped. Did someone say something to you? My pulse slowed. There it was. What would someone say? I don't know. Then why ask? Because this is bizarre. I am allowed to change course. You resigned too. She had seen the second email. Yes. What the hell is happening? I'm leaving the department. You can't. I almost smiled. I can. What about the paper? It will remain on hold until the institution decides how to proceed. Your first author. Not on anything submitted. You can't just pull your name. I pulled the draft. That is the same thing. No. Her breathing grew louder. Then, we need to talk in person. We can talk during work hours with Samuel present. Natalie. What? Please do not do anything else. I looked at the manuscript folder on my screen. That is exactly my plan. I ended the call. At 6:50, Samuel called. His voice was furious. Are you having some kind of breakdown? No. You withdrew the paper. Yes. Without consulting me. I am corresponding author on the draft. I am senior author. The manuscript was not submitted. You also resigned. Yes. What is wrong with you? Nothing. Then explain. I no longer trust the integrity of the current analysis. Silence. That was the first time I said it aloud. Samuel's tone changed. What specifically? I am not making an accusation before review. You just torched 18 months of work. I paused a draft. You resigned. That is separate. It is obviously not separate. I looked at the clock. In my first life, Samuel had been the person I wanted most to impress. He had recruited me. He had introduced me at conferences as the future of the division. When the investigation began, he stopped calling. Later, he told the committee he had assumed I was managing data appropriately. He was not evil. He was careful with his own survival. That distinction mattered. I will complete a formal handoff, I said. You owe me more than that. I owe the institution an accurate record. His voice went flat. Come to my office at 8. I will. Bring Chloe. She can come separately. Natalie. I will not conduct undocumented meetings about authorship or data integrity. Another silence. You sound like you have a lawyer. I sound like someone who wants a record. He hung up. At 7:02, I called research compliance. The director, Melanie Ortiz, answered from home. I told her I had concerns about data integrity. Not conclusions. Concerns. I want preservation of the current state before anyone changes anything. She became serious immediately. Do not modify files. I won't. Do not export additional copies. Understood. Do not confront anyone. I already sent a hold notice. That's fine. Do not accuse. I didn't. I'm going to have IT place a preservation hold on the project directories and repository. My lungs loosened. Thank you. Can you tell me the nature of the concern? Unexpected changes in outcome labeling and effect estimates. Who has edit access? Me, Chloe Parker, Priya Shah, and the data manager account. Anyone else? Samuel can access the shared drive but not the raw REDCap export. Okay. Melanie. Yes? I am resigning. I saw. You move fast. I need the handoff documented. We'll do that. Please remove my administrative ownership as soon as formal transfer is complete. Why? Because I do not want future edits attributed to my responsibility. She paused. That is unusually specific. I have been too informal about responsibility. Fair. At 7:20, an IT preservation notice froze deletion on the project folders. The files remained usable, but every change would be retained. At 7:31, the department chair emailed asking me to meet at 9. At 7:40, Chloe arrived. I saw her through the glass wall of my office. She walked fast. No coffee. No smile. She entered without knocking. What did you tell compliance? That I have concerns. About me? I did not name anyone. Then why is the drive under preservation? Because I asked them to preserve it. She shut the door. I opened it again. Leave it open. Her face tightened. Seriously? Yes. She lowered her voice. You are making me look guilty. I have not accused you of anything. You withdrew a paper the day before submission. Correct. You resigned. Yes. And now IT is freezing everything. Preserving. Same thing. No. She stared at me. Then she placed a flash drive on my desk. What is that? The cleaned dataset. I don't want it. You asked me to finish it. Upload nothing outside the documented workflow. It's already done. Then keep it where it was created and tell compliance. Her fingers stopped on the drive. Natalie. What? You said yesterday you wanted the final table today. I changed the plan. You can't keep doing that. Doing what? Changing expectations after people do the work. There was something almost convincing in her anger. If I had not lived through the first timeline, I might have apologized. Instead, I asked, where did you create the file? At home. On your personal laptop? Yes. Using identifiable data? No. De-identified export. Was the export authorized for local storage? She looked away. It was coded. That was not my question. She picked up the flash drive. You're unbelievable. Please tell compliance you made a local copy. Why? So I can get written up. So the data record is accurate. You knew I took work home. I knew you wrote. I did not know you exported study data. Her jaw tightened. You are trying to save yourself. The sentence landed harder than she knew. Yes. She blinked. I continued. I am also trying to protect the participants and the institution. Your first author. Not anymore. What does that mean? It means the draft is withdrawn. You're just giving it up? For now. Her face changed. Not anger. Fear. She had expected me to fight for the paper. Her plan required two competing claims. My version. Her version. My name. Her accusation. If I stepped away, the structure changed. You can't do that, she whispered. I already did. At 8, I met Samuel in his office. Melanie joined by video. Chloe sat across from me. Samuel looked at the four of us and said, "I want this resolved today." Melanie answered before I could. "That is not realistic." Samuel frowned. "We have a submission deadline." "You no longer have a submission deadline. The draft was withdrawn." He looked at me. "This is sabotage." "No. What would you call pulling a paper after 18 months? Pausing submission because I no longer trust the current dataset." "Based on what?" I chose my words. "The last effect estimate increased sharply after outcome reclassification. I have not independently verified the reclassification." Chloe leaned forward. "I told you I corrected obvious coding errors." "Based on what source documents?" "Clinical notes." "Which ones?" "I have the list." "Where?" "In my file." Melanie said, "Do not circulate it. Compliance will collect it." Chloe looked at the screen. "I didn't do anything wrong." "No one said you did." "You're acting like I did." "We are acting like data integrity needs verification." Samuel rubbed his forehead. "Can we just rerun the analysis?" Melanie said, "Not until the preserved state is copied and the audit sequence documented." "This is absurd." "No. This is research." I almost smiled. Samuel did not. At 9, the chair accepted my resignation subject to transition obligations. He asked if I would reconsider. I said no. He asked if another institution had recruited me. I said no. He looked genuinely confused. People understand leaving for something. They struggle with leaving from something. At 10:30, compliance began the formal handoff. The raw data repository transferred administrative ownership from me to the institutional data manager. The Git repository transferred from my account to the department organization. The manuscript folder transferred to Samuel. My personal project permissions remained read-only during the notice period. Every step generated a timestamp. At 11:12, I signed the handoff log. Current data freeze hash recorded. Current code commit recorded. Current manuscript version recorded. Current user permissions recorded. The document was boring. It was beautiful. In my first life, responsibility blurred. This time, there was a line. Before. After. At noon, Chloe stopped me in the hallway. "Can I ask you something?" "You just did." She did not smile. "Are you leaving medicine?" "No." "Where are you going?" "I don't know yet." "You resigned without a job?" "Yes." "That's insane." "Maybe." "What about your promotion?" "I'm giving it up." "What about the grant?" "It belongs to the institution." "What about the paper?" "On hold." She stared. Then she whispered, "You're ruining everything." "No." "You are." "What exactly am I ruining?" Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. That told me more than an answer. At 1:30, Priya called. She had been working off-site. "What happened?" I requested an integrity review. I saw. Are you angry? I'm confused. Fair. Did you find something? I found an effect shift I cannot explain yet. Priya was silent. Then, I thought that was weird too. My pulse changed. What? The odds ratio after Chloe's last label update. You noticed? Yes. I asked her for the reclassification list. Did she send it? No. What did she say? That you had approved the changes. My hand went cold. When? Yesterday afternoon. Did she say how? She said you reviewed the disputed cases. I did not. Priya exhaled. Okay. Please tell compliance directly. I will. The first independent contradiction. Not proof. But not memory either. At 2, Melanie called. We found a local export issue. Chloe's? Yes. She disclosed the flash drive after our meeting. Good. We are collecting her personal device under the data use agreement. Voluntary at this stage. Okay. Natalie, do you have any personal copies? No. Any work on home devices? Only manuscripts through the approved cloud environment. Good. Melanie. Yes? Please verify whether any access occurred under my credentials outside my known work sessions. Silence. That is a specific concern. I have reused passwords before. I changed mine this morning. We can review authentication logs. Thank you. At 3:12, Samuel sent an email to the whole team. Project suspended pending compliance review. No external presentation. No submission. No media. No data changes outside authorized process. Chloe replied within 3 minutes. Understood. Then she messaged me privately. Chloe, you got what you wanted. Me, I wanted a verified dataset. Chloe, don't pretend. Me, I'm not. Chloe, you're walking away and leaving me with this. Me, I am completing a formal handoff. Chloe, you were the PI. Me, correct. Chloe, that means you're responsible. There it was. The old weapon. I stared at the words. Then I typed. Me, I am responsible for work performed under my oversight before handoff. Me, I am not responsible for future changes made after institutional transfer. No answer. At 4, I left the hospital. I did not take the manuscript. I did not download the dataset. I did not copy the code. I took my stethoscope. My mug. A framed photograph of my father. A notebook containing no participant data. That was all. My father was still alive in this life. I called him from the parking garage. Hey, kid. His voice nearly broke me. Hi. You okay? No. What happened? I quit my job. Silence. Then, did you punch somebody? I laughed and cried at the same time. No. Then it can't be that bad. Dad. What? I might have just destroyed my career. Did you do something wrong? No. Then maybe you saved it. I closed my eyes. In my first life, he had asked the same question too late. This time, I had an answer while he was alive. I hope so. Come over for dinner. I will. The next morning, Chloe presented at departmental conference. She was not supposed to present the suspended study. She did anyway. Not the full paper. A methodology update. I attended because I was still employed during notice. She stood at the front of the room with slides I recognized. My conceptual diagram. My outcome framework. My writing. She had changed the title. She had removed my name from the first slide. She called the project, a novel dynamic model for early detection of postoperative infection. Then she said, "This is an analysis I've been developing over the last year." I felt no anger at first. Only astonishment. She was moving faster than in my first life. Because I had withdrawn. She needed ownership before the investigation finished. Samuel looked uncomfortable. The chair frowned. Melanie was not present. I raised my hand. Chloe froze. Yes? Is this the suspended dataset? She swallowed. No. It's a conceptual analysis. Are the figures generated from study data? They're preliminary. That was not my question. The chair intervened. Chloe, are these figures from the project under compliance hold? She looked at Samuel. He did not rescue her. They're from an earlier working version. Then yes, the chair said. Stop the presentation. Her face changed. The screen went black. No applause. No accusation from me. Just policy. Afterward, she followed me into the corridor. You did that on purpose. I asked whether you were presenting suspended data. You embarrassed me. You presented it. You knew the chair would stop me. Yes. You could have talked to me privately. The hold notice was already in writing. She laughed once. You really are done protecting people. I looked at her. Yes. For the first time, she seemed to understand me. That frightened her. 3 days into the review, IT found something. Not the fraud. A pattern. My credentials had been used from the lab workstation on 6 late evenings when badge records showed I had left the building. 5 sessions lasted less than 12 minutes. All opened the project data directory. 2 accessed the manuscript folder. 1 exported a spreadsheet. The login method used password only. No multi-factor challenge because the workstation was inside the trusted network. I felt sick. Can you identify who was physically there? I asked. The security analyst shook his head. Not from authentication alone. Badge logs? Several people had building access. Cameras? Hallway footage retention is 30 days. Most sessions are older. Good. No magical surveillance. No easy answer. Any device artifacts? We can inspect the workstation profile. What would that show? Recent USB mounts, local file history, application use. Do it. We already are. The next day, the analyst called. A flash drive identifier appeared in the workstation logs during 3 of the suspicious sessions. The The same identifier appeared on Chloe's university-issued laptop. Not proof she typed my password, but connection. Then something stranger. A browser profile on the workstation contained an autofill entry for my university email. Saved password disabled. The profile sync account belonged to Chloe. She had logged into her browser on my workstation months earlier when helping restore my citation manager. I remembered the day. She had said, "Mind if I use your computer? Mine keeps crashing." I had said yes. I had entered my password after she stepped aside. Had she watched? Maybe. Maybe not. Again, no dramatic certainty. Compliance kept collecting. Meanwhile, I worked my notice. I saw patients. I handed off grants. I closed regulatory tasks. I did not touch the suspended analysis. People whispered. Some thought I had been forced to resign. Some thought I had discovered misconduct. Some thought I was the misconduct. Academic medicine was a small town with elevators. Rumors traveled vertically. On day 5, a former resident asked if I was okay. "I'm fine." "Are you under investigation?" Everyone involved is part of the review. That means yes. It means exactly what I said. I learned to stop defending myself beyond facts. At home, my father cooked pasta. He burned the garlic. We ate it anyway. "You still quitting?" "Yes." "Any plan?" "No." He twirled pasta. "I hated my first job." "You stayed 12 years. Different generation." That's your answer to everything. It's a useful answer. I smiled. Then he asked, "You miss it already?" "The work. Not the structure." "You'll find more work." "How do you know?" "You're annoying when unemployed." I laughed. I had forgotten he could make me laugh. In my first life, scandal turned every family conversation into a crisis meeting. This time, the crisis stayed at work. That separation felt like wealth. A week after withdrawal, Chloe filed a formal authorship complaint. She claimed I had appropriated her intellectual contribution for months, then withdrew the paper when she requested first authorship. She attached emails. "Chloe, I think we should emphasize dynamic features more." Me, "Good point." "Chloe, I rewrote the methods paragraph." Me, "Thanks." "Chloe, the model architecture is basically my contribution at this point, lol." Me, "You've done a lot." Real messages. Friendly messages. Dangerous without context. She argued the paper was substantially hers. Then she claimed I resigned to prevent her from publishing independently. The complaint forced a separate authorship review. Samuel called me. "This is getting ugly." It was already ugly. She says she should be first author. Maybe the committee can decide after the data issue. You're not going to fight? I'll provide contribution records. That's fighting. No. It's documenting. He sighed. You've become exhausting. I used to be convenient. That silenced him. The contribution records were dull. Grant proposal drafts. Protocol versions. Statistical analysis plan authorship. Git commits. Meeting minutes. IRB submissions. Draft histories. I had written the original protocol 2 years before Chloe joined. Priya wrote the statistical core. Chloe contributed feature engineering ideas and literature review updates. She deserved authorship. She did not invent the study. The record made that clear. But something else appeared. A document called methods_rewrite_cp. Docs. Chloe had uploaded it 6 weeks earlier. Several paragraphs matched my earlier grant proposal nearly word for word. Not plagiarism in the legal sense within a team project. But it contradicted her claim that she independently created the conceptual framework. Then the review found the variable. inft_flag_v2. Misspelled. I had created it in a private test script months earlier. The variable was never part of the approved analysis pipeline. It existed only in a sandbox branch I used to test a broken merge. I misspelled infection as infant because I was typing quickly. I fixed it the next day. The final code used infection_outcome. Chloe's independent analysis used inft_flag_v2. Priya noticed first. Natalie. We sat in a compliance meeting. She turned her laptop. Why is this here? I stared. The variable appeared in Chloe's script. How did she get that? Was it ever shared? Not intentionally. Repository history? Private sandbox branch under my account. Melanie looked at IT. The analyst checked. The branch was accessed from Dr. Brooks's workstation during one of the off-hours credential sessions. My skin went cold. When? January 12th at 11:43 p.m. The same session that exported a spreadsheet. Badge record showed I left at 7:18. Chloe's badge showed entry at 10:57. She left at 12:06. Still not absolute proof. Other people were in the building. But the line narrowed. Melanie said, "We need to interview her about this." I said nothing. 2 days later, Chloe changed her story. She said I had shown her the sandbox script. Possible. I could not prove I had not. Then she said I gave her my password because Natalie hated dealing with permissions. False. She produced no message. IT policy prohibited password sharing. I admitted I had allowed her to use my workstation under supervision once. I admitted I may have entered my password while she was nearby. That was careless. I owned it. The committee asked why I had not changed the password afterward. I should have. That answer mattered. I did not need to be perfect to be truthful. Then the most important timestamp appeared. My formal handoff occurred at 11:12 a.m. On March 4th. My right access to the project repository ended at 11:18. At 2:46 p.m. On March 4th, Chloe committed a new script. At 3:03, she uploaded a revised outcome table. At 3:17, the estimated model performance increased again. At 4:02, she created a manuscript copy titled CP_original_submission. Docs. At 5:11, she emailed herself a PDF. All after my permissions changed to read-only. All under her authenticated account. The revised outcome table contained 4 additional case relabelings. Those 4 cases were central. Without them, the model performance weakened. With them, the breakthrough returned. I had no ability to make those edits. That did not clear me of earlier oversight. It did something more important. It made her continuing story impossible. If I were secretly manipulating the analysis and using her as cover, why did the manipulation continue after I withdrew, resigned, requested preservation, and lost right access? The committee asked Chloe. She said she was completing work Natalie had instructed. Where was the instruction? She pointed to an old message. Please resolve remaining labels. Sent 3 weeks earlier. The chair asked, did that instruction authorize specific relabeling after a compliance hold? No. Did Dr. Brooks contact you after the hold and tell you to continue? No. Then why did you? Chloe's eyes filled. Because the paper was mine too. There it was. Not safety. Not integrity. Ownership. She believed contribution gave her permission to preserve the result, even if the data had to be made to fit. The committee did not conclude misconduct that day. Real investigations take time. They interviewed source abstractors. They compared chart notes. They reviewed the 4 disputed cases. 2 clearly did not meet the pre-specified infection definition. 1 was ambiguous and should have gone to adjudication. 1 had been excluded from the outcome set entirely because the event occurred outside the defined window. Chloe had changed all 4 to positive. Her justification file said, clinically consistent. No adjudication signatures. No attending review. No protocol amendment. No documented rule. The result was no longer an accident. At the same time, Human Resources processed my resignation. My final day arrived. Samuel asked to see me. He closed the door. I opened it. He sighed. Still doing that? Yes. He left it open. You can withdraw the resignation. No. The chair would accept. I know. You're being cleared. Not fully. The evidence is moving away from you. That is not why I'm leaving. Then why? I looked at him. Because I built a system where responsibility flowed downhill until it reached me. He frowned. You were PI. Yes. That's leadership. No. Leadership is not the same as being the last person who signs everything after midnight. You had autonomy. I had accountability without enough structure. You created the structure. Not enough. Samuel leaned back. So this is my fault? I didn't say that. You implied it. I'm saying I am leaving. He was quiet. Then, you know, Chloe filed for protected whistleblower status. Yes. If the misconduct finding goes against her, she'll say retaliation. That is for the institution to handle. You really are done. Yes. He looked almost sad. We could have published something important. Maybe we still will someday. Not that version. You don't want first author? No. That answer seemed to hurt him more than anything else. Academic people understand ambition. Refusing it looks like treason. I stood. Thank you for the opportunities you gave me. He nodded slowly. You were one of my best recruits. I know. That sounded arrogant. I'm working on boundaries, not humility. He laughed despite himself. We shook hands. I left my badge with administration. At 4:40 p.m. My hospital account changed from active faculty to transition access. At 5 o'clock, I walked out. No new job. No paper. No grant. No office. I had never felt lighter. The next morning, I woke at 6 because my body did not know unemployment. My father called at 7. So what does a retired 32-year-old do? I'm not retired. Could have fooled me. I'm going for a run. You hate running. I know. I ran anyway. It was terrible. I loved it. A week later, a community hospital contacted me. Their chief medical officer had heard I was leaving academia. They needed a physician to help build a surgical quality program. Clinical work. Outcomes. No publication pressure. I interviewed. The CMO asked why I left. I told the truth without details under investigation. I became uncomfortable with the integrity and governance of a research project. I paused submission, initiated review, completed handoff, and resigned. He stared at me. That's a very expensive decision. Yes. Do you regret it? No. He hired me. The salary was lower. The hours were better. I accepted. 2 months later, the Research Integrity Committee issued preliminary findings. Chloe had engaged in unauthorized data modification and misleading documentation. The report did not call her a fraudster. It described actions. Improper outcome reclassification. Failure to follow adjudication protocol. Continued analysis after formal hold. Misrepresentation of senior review. Improper use of another investigator's credentials could not be conclusively proven, but evidence showed unauthorized access consistent with her presence and device history. My oversight was criticized. Weak access controls. Informal correction culture. Insufficient documentation of junior performance. Failure to escalate repeated process deviations. I accepted every line. That was the difference between accountability and scapegoating. I had made mistakes. They were not her mistakes. She had made choices. They were not mine. Chloe appealed. Then she contacted a medical news blogger. The article appeared under the headline, "Young Researcher Says Senior Physician Destroyed Career After Authorship Dispute." There was my name. Again. For 1 hour, I felt the first life swallowing me. My hands shook. My vision narrowed. I wanted to call everyone. Explain. Send documents. Fight. My lawyer said, do nothing. The institution issued a short statement. Ongoing research integrity proceedings are governed by confidential policy. No comment. People online chose sides anyway. Some called me a bully. Some called Chloe brave. Some called both of us corrupt. Then the evidence outlived the outrage. The final committee hearing occurred 4 months after my resignation. I attended because I was still a named respondent and witness. The room held the dean, research integrity officers, faculty reviewers, legal counsel, a statistician, and an external research ethics expert. Chloe sat across from me with her attorney. She looked thinner. Still polished. Still composed. The committee chair began with the timeline. Protocol approved. Data lock planned. Outcome definitions established. Reclassification procedure specified. Manuscript draft created. Unexpected effect change observed. Draft withdrawn. Preservation initiated. PI handoff completed. Write access removed. Further relabeling occurred. The sequence itself was devastating. Chloe's attorney argued that I had abandoned the study and left a junior researcher to complete urgent work. The external statistician asked, "Urgent for what?" The attorney paused. Submission. There was no active submission after withdrawal. Silence. The statistician continued. Why was there urgency to modify outcomes on a project under integrity review? No good answer. Then came the 4 cases. Case 1. No infection by protocol definition. Changed to infection. Case 2. Positive culture judged contaminant by treating team. Changed to infection. Case 3. Ambiguous postoperative fever. Protocol required adjudication. Changed without adjudication. Case 4. Event outside 30-day window. Changed to infection. The external ethics reviewer asked Chloe, "What rule did you apply?" Clinical judgment. Whose? Mine. Were you authorized to override the pre-specified endpoint? I believed the endpoint was too rigid. Did you amend the protocol? No. Did you ask the PI? I had raised concerns. Did she authorize a change? She told me to resolve labels. The reviewer looked at me. Dr. Brooks? I instructed the team to resolve inconsistencies according to protocol. I did not authorize changing the endpoint definition. The reviewer nodded. Then the Git history appeared. My private variable. inft_flag_v2. Chloe's attorney said I had shared it. The IT analyst testified that the branch had been accessed during a session using my credentials after my badge exit. Chloe was present in the building. Her registered flash drive was mounted during the same session. No camera. No confession. Circumstantial. The committee treated it that way. Then came something stronger. A local copy of Chloe's script contained a comment. #use Natalie Sandbox labels until final story stabilizes. The line was dated January 13th. I stared. Final story. Not final model. Not final endpoint. Story. The statistician asked, "What did you mean by final story?" Chloe's face tightened. Research narrative. Do outcomes change to fit narrative? No. Then why use that phrase beside a provisional label variable? It was shorthand. The answer sounded exactly like Samuel once describing a false email. Shorthand. A word people use when precision becomes inconvenient. Then the committee displayed Chloe's chat with a friend from another hospital. Chloe, Natalie is impossible about protocol. Friend, that's kind of her job. Chloe, she'll loosen up when she sees the paper works. Friend, what if it doesn't? Chloe, then it won't be a paper. Chloe, I'm not wasting a year for a null result. The room became very quiet. Chloe looked at the screen as if seeing it for the first time. Her attorney objected to relevance. The committee overruled. The chair asked, "Did publication pressure influence your classification decisions?" No. Then explain this message. I was venting. Did you believe a null result would waste your year? She swallowed. Yes. Did you believe Dr. Brooks could absorb delay better than you? Her eyes flicked toward me. There it was. The hidden arithmetic again. My career was established. Hers was fragile. Therefore my reputation was more expendable. She whispered, she already had a career. The chair asked, meaning? Chloe began crying. I needed the paper. No one moved. I had fellowship interviews. Samuel kept saying I needed something big. Everyone called me talented. Everyone expected me to be the next person who broke out of the program. I could not show up with another negative study. The external reviewer said, negative results are results. Not when you're junior. That is not an ethical exception. I know. Did you alter labels to improve the result? Her lawyer touched her arm. She stopped. The chair did not force an answer. They did not need a dramatic confession. The records already existed. Then Chloe turned toward me. You knew I was doing half your work. I looked at her. You contributed substantially. You took credit. You were an author. Second. Yes. You always got first because you were PI. I designed the study and wrote the protocol before you joined. You still needed me. Yes. The answer surprised her. I did need you. Her face tightened. Then why throw me away? I did not. You resigned. I withdrew myself. You knew that would leave me exposed. I knew it would leave each person responsible for their own actions. Her eyes filled again. That's the same thing. No. The word was quiet. It carried 2 lives. No, Chloe. It isn't. The committee recessed. We waited almost an hour. When they returned, they sustained findings of research misconduct related to intentional or reckless falsification of outcome classifications and misleading documentation. They did not find sufficient evidence to conclude she had stolen my password. They did find she improperly accessed materials through credentials not authorized to her. Her employment had already ended during appeal. The university referred findings to funding agencies and her future training program. Her medical license was not automatically revoked. She had due process there too. My finding was different. No research misconduct. Administrative deficiencies in supervision and data governance. Required corrective action if I returned to sponsored research. I signed the acknowledgement. Not perfect. Not destroyed. Mine. Afterward, Chloe stood near the elevator with her attorney. I could have walked past. She spoke first. You won. I stopped. No. She laughed bitterly. You got cleared. I lost everything. I lost the paper. The job. The grant. My lab. You chose that. Yes. That's why you won. I thought about it. Maybe she was right in a way. Choice was the difference. In my first life, everything had been taken after I fought to keep it. In this life, I surrendered what could trap me before it became a weapon. But that was not winning over Chloe. It was choosing myself. I hope you learn from what happened, I said. Her eyes hardened. Don't patronize me. I'm not. Then what do you want? Nothing. That was the truth. I left. At the community hospital, my quality program grew. We built dashboards. We reviewed infections. We changed prophylaxis workflows. We published nothing for the first year. The work still mattered. Patients had fewer central line infections. Readmissions dropped. Surgeons complained about one checklist until the data showed it worked. I remembered how desperate I had once been for journals to prove I was useful. Now a nurse showing me a safer process felt better than a citation count. My father visited the hospital one afternoon. He wore a visitor badge and looked around like I owned the building. You like this place? Yes. Smaller. Yes. Less fancy. Yes. You happy? I looked at him. Yes. He smiled. Then I can brag again. You never stopped. True. A year later, Priya contacted me. The old study had been rebuilt from the raw data. Independent adjudicators reviewed every disputed outcome. The spectacular result disappeared. The model still had modest predictive value. Not revolutionary. Potentially useful. She asked if I wanted to rejoin as an author. I sat with the email for a day. Then I said yes, under conditions. Transparent contribution statement. Full audit trail. Independent statistical verification. No rush. No inflated claims. Priya agreed. Samuel was no longer senior author. The chair had reassigned oversight. The revised manuscript took 8 months. The title changed. The word early remained. The word prediction remained. The word breakthrough never appeared. The main conclusion said the model showed incremental value but required external validation. Boring. Careful. True. I was listed as second author. Priya was first. I could have argued. I did not. She had led the rebuild. Authorship should reflect work. When the paper was accepted, I opened the email at my kitchen table. My father was there eating cereal. Good news? Paper got accepted. The one? Yes. The cursed one? The repaired one. He raised his spoon. To boring science. I laughed. To boring science. The paper did not go viral. No press release. No medical genius. No career-making headline. It was cited 11 times the first year. I was proud of every one. 2 years after I resigned, the community hospital offered me a director role. Clinical Quality and Research Governance. The title made me laugh. Governance. The thing I once treated as paperwork had become the reason I survived. I accepted. My first policy was unpopular. No shared credentials. No undocumented local data exports. No silent senior correction of junior research records. Every substantive outcome change required dual review and reason code. Every analysis repository used protected branches. People complained. This is overkill. I said, maybe. 6 months later, an analyst made a coding mistake that changed a mortality metric. The audit trail showed exactly when. Exactly who. Exactly why. No scandal. No blame hunt. We corrected it. We learned. That was the system I wished I had built before. One evening, after a long committee meeting, a new research fellow knocked on my door. "Do you have a minute?" "Yes." She sat. "I think I messed up." My old body remembered panic. A junior. A mistake. An opportunity to fix it quietly. What happened? I excluded 12 cases from an analysis because I thought they were duplicate encounters. They aren't. Has anything been submitted? No. Presented? Internal meeting only. Good. She looked terrified. Am I fired? No. What do I do? Document the error. Restore the cases. Rerun the analysis. Tell your statistician and supervisor. You. Yes. Tell me. She blinked. I'm telling you now. Then we're already doing it. She exhaled. Should I delete the bad output? No. Her face changed. Why keep it? Because the record of correction matters. She nodded. Okay. Before leaving, she said, I thought you'd be mad. I am concerned. That is different. After she left, I sat alone. That was the life I wanted. Not a life without mistakes. A life where mistakes did not need a sacrificial person. The next spring, I spoke at a conference on research reproducibility. Not as a scandal survivor. Not publicly. The talk was about governance. At the end, someone asked, what is the single most important thing institutions misunderstand about integrity? I thought about Chloe. About Samuel. About myself. Most integrity failures do not begin with someone deciding to become a villain, I said. They begin when incentives reward a result, responsibility is vague, and everyone assumes somebody else will verify the uncomfortable part. The room went quiet. I continued. Make ownership visible before the result matters. Afterward, a young investigator approached. That sounded personal. It is. Did something happen? Yes. What? I smiled. Enough to make me care about audit logs. She laughed. I left it there. On the 3rd anniversary of my resignation, I found the original withdrawal confirmation in an archived email. Author requests withdrawal prior to submission for independent verification of data integrity and authorship contributions. I stared at the sentence. In my first life, I believed pulling the paper meant losing. The paper was everything. Proof that I was brilliant enough. Driven enough. Important enough. I clung to it while it dragged me under. In my second life, I pulled it before anyone could use my attachment against me. Then I quit the job that taught people I would carry every consequence as long as they let me keep my title. People called me irrational. Chloe called me a coward. Samuel called it sabotage. For a while, I called it grief. Eventually, I called it what it was. A boundary. I did not expose Chloe with a secret recording. I did not hack her laptop. I did not plant false data. I did not wait for a patient to be harmed. I did not destroy her career. I stopped protecting a corrupted process from scrutiny. I withdrew my name. I transferred control. I preserved the record. Then I left. She continued. That was what trapped her. Every edit after my handoff belonged to her account. Every relabeled case required her explanation. Every borrowed sentence had a version history. Every claim of independent genius met a timestamp. The trap collapsed because the person it was built around had stepped away. My father once asked me whether I regretted walking out before I knew where I would land. I told him no. That was not completely true. I regretted the lab, the trainees, the grant, the career I imagined. I regretted losing the version of myself who believed hard work could control outcomes. But regret is not the same as wishing you chose differently. I never wished I stayed. Not once. One Friday evening, I left the hospital before sunset. My phone stayed in my bag. No journal deadline. No emergency. No manuscript waiting for my signature. At home, I opened a new document. Not a paper. A book proposal about clinical data integrity. I typed one sentence. Then another. No one else owned the file. No one else needed my name. Outside, rain tapped against the window. I thought about the woman I had been in my first life. The one who died believing her career had been stolen. I wanted to reach backward through time and tell her something. They could take the title. They could take the lab. They could take the paper. But the work that made you capable of building them was still yours. In this life, I learned that before it was too late. I pulled the paper. I quit the job. I watched the junior everyone call the medical genius panic when the results she wanted could no longer hide behind my name. Then I walked away before her collapse could become the center of my life. The best part was not watching her fall. The best part was discovering I could leave the room and still remain myself.